Hello, my name's Olurotimi Osha. Today is May the 24th, 2026. We're still in Mental Health Awareness Month, and it's also a Sunday. And of course, I promised that instead of doing my regular discussion on American presidents and US history and global history and everything in between, I will focus on Sundays on scripture, right? Getting knowledge from scripture. Because when I'm discussing US history and American presidents, the idea is sort of to educate. I started doing these videos because my friend wanted me to mentor his son. And of course, I've talked about in my earlier videos, I've discussed how I've been wrongfully detained by the state of Maryland through false accusations and false charges. And basically, they've blackballed me, defamed me. So I haven't been able to go to my job, my place of employment where I was working. And it's been 3 years. So I decided that I'll use, my repository of knowledge from my vast education, right? I have, what, 5 university degrees or so, and so I decided that I would use that knowledge and talk about history, things I like doing. But something else I love doing is discussing the Bible. So Sundays I talk about the Bible because you can actually get knowledge from the Bible, lots of knowledge, lots of wisdom. Um, One of our favorite presidents, by the way, just a quick tidbit. My favorite president, Abraham Lincoln, learned to read by studying the Bible. Most people know Abraham Lincoln was an autodidact. That means he was self taught. He hardly attended the four walls of a classroom, but he learned the Bible, mastered it. And of course, we know he went on to become a lawyer, one of America's leading corporate attorneys in his day. And of course, he became president. In his speeches, he's one of the best presidential speech writers. He wrote his own speeches, unlike today people write speeches for people. In fact, I've been in government. I've written speeches for and messages for top government officials as well while I was working in government. So people, most many of these principals don't write their speeches anymore. But Abraham Lincoln wrote his speeches, and it's remarkable that he learned from the Bible. And you can see it in his speeches because he quotes the Bible often. There's a famous quote from Abraham Lincoln: "A house divided against itself cannot stand." People say that's an Abraham Lincoln saying, but Abraham Lincoln was actually quoting Jesus Christ in the Bible. That's what Jesus Christ actually said. But enough said. Let me get into it. So today, what motivated me? Something that motivated what I was going to do today. By the way, I'm lucky that it's almost as if I wing this, but if you've been doing things for a long time, right, and you're having a conversation, it just flows. So I read a lot, right? I know enough of the Bible that I don't have to be overly prepared. I know a lot of U.S. history, so I can create like a through line in what I'm doing, right? Um, so I was motivated by something I saw on the internet yesterday. That was a comment by about George Zimmerman. George Zimmerman, if anybody remembers, is the murderer who murdered a 17-year-old Trayvon Martin. And he was acquitted, even though he killed this kid in cold blood. Trayvon Martin, a black kid, George Zimmerman, a white guy, and he murdered this guy. And there's this, it's gone viral on the internet about how karma's sort of caught up to him. That's the message, because one, he's unemployed. Even though he wasn't convicted, he's been a free man. He never, he didn't do time. He was acquitted for his murder, but that he's unemployed. Uh, he's homeless. He's struggling with mental illness, PTSD or whatever, mental illness. And this is Mental Health Awareness Month, right? And he's paranoid that he walks around with a bulletproof vest, and he's got all these terrible things going on, unemployed, homeless, whatever. And it's supposed to be that's what happens when you're a bad person. That's basically the message. And it was what I found kind of interesting ironic was that it was a black person who posted this. I mean, where I saw it on my timeline on Facebook, it was a black person posting it. And I thought, wow, homelessness, unemployment, mental illness, things like that. Those are things that the highest rate of incidence amongst uh, it's most preponderant within the black community, the black male community, right? Home unemployment is highest amongst black people. There's homelessness highest amongst black people. They say black people are more likely to black men are more likely uh, to be 4 times uh, infected with suffer from schizophrenia than white male, which is the most one of the most severe forms of mental illness, right? So these are things that are um, that are, I don't know if endemic. I don't want to use the term endemic or pervasive or but they do plague the black community in America. So is it, if by judging by the standard of this person who's saying, well, that George Zimmerman, a white man, is suffering homelessness, unemployment, and mental illness, that's a sign that he's a bad person. That's the just deserts for he's being a bad person. Does that mean, following that logic, does that mean that the black men, majority of the black men in America who experience homelessness, unemployment, mental illness because their conditions are bad, right? PTSD, because they're just going through difficult circumstances because they're unemployed. Does that mean it's because of what they did, because they're bad people? Certainly not, right? Black people experience unemployment and all these disproportionate rates of hardship, homelessness, and things like that because of discrimination, right? There's institutionalized structural racism, discrimination against them. They're victims of racism, right? People who are victims of racism and experience unemployment, uh, homelessness, and things like that. I mean, I'm unemployed right now. Is it because I've done something bad? No, right? So that's I wanted to use that as a pivot, today, as sort of jump off my discussion today. Um, Good people sometimes go through travails, tribulations, right, due to no fault of theirs. That's sort of what I'm discussing. I've talked about Joseph. Joseph is a favorite character of mine in the Bible. Joseph became enslaved, right? He became enslaved. He went to prison for a crime he didn't commit. Did he do anything bad? Right? He became a slave. He became Being a slave is worse than being unemployed, right? Did Joseph do anything bad? No, Joseph didn't do anything bad. In fact, it was for being righteous when he was sent from slavery into prison. Or, he refused to sleep with Potiphar, his master's wife, who was trying to seduce him. He didn't want to disobey God. He was being righteous. He was doing what was right. But then she ended up lying against him, and he ended up in prison, right? So good people face uh, bad circumstances sometimes, right? They go through persecution, they go through trials, tribulation, they suffer sometimes. It's not necessarily that they're bad. I'm not saying George Zimmerman is a good person, he's a bad man, but sometimes when we're distorting and conflating conditions, right? You're putting the cart before the horse, sometimes you just need to be very, clear on what it is that we're saying. I just didn't see what one Judge Zimmerman should be in prison. He should be in jail, and reminding one, pointing out the trope, the conditions that a vast majority of innocent black men in American society suffer as a result of racism. It just, it's not palatable. I mean, let me leave it at that. But in any event, let me get back to it that yes, um, good people suffer from bad things sometimes. And in the case of Joseph, we find that even his sufferings were brought on, uh, as a result of, not because of something bad he had done or him being lazy. His sufferings came about because he was blessed. He was blessed by God. It was when he told his brothers that, well, God had blessed him. He had this vision, this dream that all there, using the metaphor that he used, right, the trope, that everything, they would all bow down to him, and they became envious, right? They became envious. So that was the beginning of his problems. And it's ironic that it was the people who harmed him, and sometimes, that's the other thing. Sometimes good people, right, Christians, good people who fear God, they can be persecuted and they can suffer as a result of envy, backlash, a blowback from people who are envious of their success, right? That's really what I want to discuss today, right? Sometimes people who are successful, uh, there might be a blowback, right? Some kind of pushback. Envious people might retaliate and they might conspire, right? And sabotage them. And that's the reason why they're suffering, like the case of Joseph, right? His brothers intended to actually kill him. That was the intention, right? Because they were envious of the blessings he had, right? Joseph had just told his brothers that God, this the vision he saw in his dream, right, of the blessings God was going to give him, and they were jealous. It is ironic, and that sometimes even people who are blessed themselves, or people who are saying they worship God, they're good people, they might do what's bad. They might even, in fact, in the case of Joseph, right, his brothers were definitely blessed, right? Those were the 12, his brothers made up the 12 tribes of Israel. All of them were blessed. They were promised blessing, and even after that, they still blessed. God still blessed them. Joseph blessed them even when he was blessed, right? So Joseph, we know the story. He ended up going into Egypt because of he was sold as a slave. He ended up in prison, but from prison he goes into the palace and becomes the ruler of Egypt. The only person higher than him was the king, was Pharaoh, and eventually God caused famine in Canaan, the land of his father and his siblings where they were, and they ended up coming to uh, to Egypt. But Joseph ended up blessing them, saying no, that it was God who did it. He didn't need to be afraid, because his siblings were scared when they saw that, wow, all these things, the evil, the conspiracy against him out of envy, it didn't destroy him. It just led to his elevation, right? And it was God who did it. But he ended up blessing them. He didn't punish them. He gave them a nice place in Egypt, saved them from famine and blessed them, right? And even after everybody died, their father blessed them. Jacob, they were blessed. Those are the 12 tribes of Israel. So the people who punished him, who were envious of his blessings and punished it, they were also blessed people. They were blessed people. His brothers, what is it? Reuben, Reuben, huh? He was blessed. Simeon, Levi, that's the priesthood. They created the priesthood. Judah, that's the line from which Jesus Christ comes from which David comes from. He was blessed, right? Naphtali, he was blessed. Asher, Gad, Dan, Zebulun, right? All the siblings of Joseph were blessed. His younger brother Benjamin wasn't involved in the conspiracy, but all his siblings were all blessed people, but they were jealous and they conspired against him. So this happens. It happens sometimes. Good people, they're going through sufferings. That's part of being a Christian again, and you're prepared for it. So that's what I want to do today. I want to just draw attention to the Bible. Yes, PTSD occurs when people are suffering, right? But Christians, you have the Bible, and it can it can give you resolve, resilience, and it can build you up, and it can give you wisdom. Let me start off. Let me just quickly quote some things regarding wisdom, and that's one of the things that a reason I go into scripture. I've given an analogy of the body. I try to do a metaphor with a computer, right? A computer has the hardware, software, right? And then it's powered by electricity. right? An external source that comes into it, right? So liken the hardware of the computer with our body, the human body, the corporeal human form, the hardware, our eyes, our muscles, which we feed with nutrition and exercise, right? That's the body. And then the software, that's the software, that's the functioning of a computer. So that's our identity, our mind, our brain, our thinking, our soul, right? Many people liken our soul to the spirit. Our soul is not the spirit. And then there's the electricity, the source, the energy source that powers the computer, that makes the whole thing operate, the operating system function, right? You can liken the spirit, the electricity to the spirit, right? Electricity powers the computer, whole thing, and that's you can liken that to the spirit, the human spirit, which connects us to God, connects us to the life source. God is our creator, our maker, the creator of the universe, our spirit, and that's what we can use uh, to communicate with God, the spirit. And so we can ask for resilience when we, strengthen our spirit, our unity, our union with God, right? Our communion with God. Let me go into the Bible. It's several minutes now, and so I want to discuss the story of Isaac. It's an example of someone who started to experience hardship, suffering, tribulation, persecution because he was blessed. And I'm going to be reading from the New King James Bible today, and you can easily see from the readings. So I start off with Proverbs chapter 12, verse 1, you know, on being looking for wisdom, looking for instruction. It's very important. And reading the Bible helps you get instruction and wisdom. So Proverbs chapter 12, verse 1 says, whoever loves instruction loves knowledge, but he who hates correction is stupid. So let us not be stupid. Remember, a companion of fools will fall into harm, right? But those who walk with wise men will be wise. That's also in the Bible, right? Um, Now I'm gonna jump off and just start reading from the book of Genesis. Let me start from the book of Genesis, verse 12 to 16. So Isaac was the son of Abraham, right? And he was born from Sarah through promise. So he was a child of promise and Abraham's heir. So let me start reading. And you could see he's in he goes to this, he's in a foreign land right now. And it's interesting. Remember, we Christians were Christians were pilgrims of this earth. So sometimes I like to liken the religion of Christianity as a religion of immigrants, right? Because Abraham was an immigrant. Joseph was an immigrant. Jacob was an immigrant, right? There's a saying in the Bible: "My father was a wandering Aramean," right? With a few people, he went into Egypt, right? And he soon grew into a great, mighty, and prosperous nation, but the Egyptians mistreated us, right? So that's a quote in the Bible. So you see, I like to call Christianity a religion of immigrants, right? So it can sustain us, it can give us resolve, it can teach us um, how to deal with life's challenges, because challenges come, right? And but challenges aren't supposed to break us as Christians. Challenges help build us, right? Builds our resilience. And by studying the Bible, you will get that. So let me get into Genesis chapter 26 from verse 12. I'm going to read from verse 12 to 16. Okay. I keep getting these pop-ups, so I apologize. Then Isaac sowed in that land and reaped in the same year 100-fold, and the Lord blessed him. The man began to prosper and continued prospering until he became very prosperous. For he had possessions of flocks and possessions of herds and a great number of servants. So the Philistines envied him. Now the Philistines had stopped up. You see, envy. The Philistines envied him. So you're prospering, God is prospering you, and then your environment, people in your environment, they envy you. In the case of Joseph, it was members of his own household, people who were also blessed. They were also blessed. They were promised blessings as well, but they envied Joseph, right? People should learn to stay in their own lane, right? Because they're angry with God. So let's see what goes on. In this case, the Philistines, they were people who didn't fear God, that were envious, right? So the Philistines envied him. Now the Philistines had stopped up all the wells which his father's servants had dug in the days of Abraham his father, and they had filled them with earth. You see, so earth, that's like stone. So you see, there will be people trying to sabotage you, your success sometimes. So sometimes, think what other people are seeing. They're not seeing that it's people who are envious of your success that are sabotaging you. I've done videos talking about how I was sabotaged in the Department of Defense. In fact, it was when I was just offered the best job. It was May 2023. I had told this guy, Jide, who claims to be a pastor, an elder in Forsey Bible Church. I told him, hey, I was just offered this, right? Huge uh, opportunity. And that's when he made these false accusations, and then police came to raid me. And for the past 3 years, I haven't worked because I've been facing these false charges. So you see, there'll be sabotage. It happens. In this case, anyway, I'll continue. Now the Philistines had stopped up all the wells which his father's servants had dug in the days of Abraham his father, and they had filled them with earth. And Abimelech said to Isaac, "Go away from us, for you are much mightier than we." You see, so somebody came and said the truth. Abimelech was the king of the Philistines, right? So he says, "Go away from us, for you are much mightier than we." Now, something I want to do is just before I continue, um, what I'm gonna do is just do a quick uh, diversion. I want to read Psalms. The refers to Psalms 55, verse 16. So regarding warfare. So I did a video and I discussed warfare, spiritual warfare. So you see, people were sabotaging somebody who was blessed of God. If you don't know, right, you won't know how to fight spiritual warfare. You won't know what's going on, right? And here was Isaac. He was blessed of God. But in his environment, even though he was in a foreign land, he was blessed of God, and these people were attacking him. Well, he didn't go and fight with them physically, but there's a spiritual warfare you can do. And so it happens. We will suffer sabotage, persecution, tribulation, attacks in the world. But what can a child of God do? You don't break down. You don't go and start attacking people. You don't fall sick, because that's what they're looking for. They want you to break down and fall sick. But take a look. So uh, it's in the Bible, right? It's in the Bible. They're gonna attack you, so as a Christian. Psalm 31 verse 4, it says, "Pull me out of the net which they have secretly laid for me, for you are my strength." It's saying God is your strength. You are my strength. Pull me out of the net which they have secretly laid for me. You see, they do it in secret, right? Whether it's in your workplace. In this case, you can see the story of Isaac. You have the Bible as a template, as a blueprint. You can see how God is blessing Isaac and his environment, envious people. They start to sabotage him. They don't pour earth and rocks in his wells in his presence. They do it when he's not there, right behind his back. So they do it secretly. But Christians, children of God, they know how to pray. Look at what you could do. This is a secret. Somebody asked me, what's my secret? Look at it. Psalm 55 from verse 16. As for me, I will call upon God, and the Lord shall save me. Evening and morning and at noon I will pray and cry aloud, and he shall hear my voice. He has redeemed my soul in peace from the battle that was against me. For there were many against me, right? There were many against me. So, and that's what happens, right? Many are the afflictions of a righteous man, but the Lord delivers him out of them all. So, uh, you know, so that's something that we have to know as Christians. These things will happen. In Psalms 55, verse 22, it says, "Cast your burden on the Lord, and he shall sustain you. He shall never permit the righteous to be moved." So I'm going to continue with the story of Isaac now. Right, you can see how he was attacked, and let's see how that story ends. The story of Isaac. Isaac, of course, was the son of Abraham. He wasn't Abraham's only son, but he had a promise. Right, there was a promise for him. Um, so I'm going to continue the story. There's something that I want us to see. So, from Genesis 26, I'm going to start. This is 18. I'm reading 18 now. And Isaac dug again, and the wells of water which they had dug in the days of Abraham his father, for the Philistines had stopped them up after the death of Abraham, right? He called them by the names which his father had called them. So sometimes, it's been sabotaged, you dig again, right? It says he had his wells, they were there, but they blocked them, stopped them. What does it say? It says, and Isaac dug again. You don't give up, you continue, right? Also, Isaac's servants dug in the valley and found a well of running water there. But the herdsmen of Gerar quarreled, right? Quarreled with Isaac's herdsmen, saying, "The water is ours." So he called the name of the well, Esek, because they quarreled with him. Then they dug another well, and they quarreled over that one also. So he called its name Sitnah. And he moved from there and dug another well, and they did not quarrel over it. So he called its name Rehoboth, because he said, "For now the Lord has made room for us. He shall, and we shall be fruitful in the land," right? For now the Lord has made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land, right? You can see how long it took for Isaac to be fruitful, right? He had no help. Only God was helping him. Only God was helping him. Then he went up from there to Beersheba, and the Lord appeared to him the same night and said, "I am the Lord of your father Abraham. Do not fear, for I am with you." Right? All that while God was with him. "I will bless you and multiply your descendants for my servant Abraham's sake." So he built an altar there and called on the name of the Lord, and he pitched his tent there, and there Isaac's servants dug a well. You see, they kept doing what they were supposed to do. And Abimelech came to him from Gerar with Ahazeth, one of his friends, and Phicol, the commander of his army. So you see, finally, Isaac didn't have any help. All it was after God had already solved his problems. That's when Abimelech, the king, with his army now showed up, and they now, when you continue with the reading, what they wanted to do was make peace with Isaac. They wanted to help Isaac. They wanted to be friends with Isaac, and that's what's going to happen when you're going through trials. Everybody, in fact, you're fortunate when everybody abandons you sometimes, right? As a child of God, that's when you learn to rely on God. So only God can take credits, right, for your overcoming adversity, right? You learn to be with God. When I was locked up wrongfully, there was nobody else to pray with me, and I was with criminals. I had to learn to pray, to rely on God. Only God could save me. I had to learn to pray for what I wanted, and only God was there to help me. There was nobody that could help me, right? So anybody that God touched eh, to come to my aid, it was God who did it, right? So you learn to give glory, all glory to God, right? So it's after everything your problems have been solved, that's when people will show up, just like Abimelech and an army now showed up and wanted to be friends with with Isaac. Importantly, though, importantly, in the end, it came to pass. As I'm now reading Genesis 26, verse 22. Genesis chapter 26, verse 32, verse 32. It came to pass the same day that Isaac's servants came and told him about the well which they had dug, and said to him, We have found water. We have found water. So by God's grace, I've been going through a lot of things, and sometimes you're going through travails as well. And many people, as they're facing adversity, especially in America, black men, minorities, unemployment, some in and out of jail, might be not due to any thing they've caused, but your employment situation sometimes can cause you to be depressed, and you're in and out. Eventually, if you persist, you learn how to pray, you learn how to continue to pray, and you persevere, God will come to your aid. God can come to your aid, and then you will find blessings. Just like Isaac, he dug and dug, and eventually his men came and said, We have found water, right? We have found water. That is very important, and by God's grace, we will find water, right? So learn to fight spiritually. Learn to fight spiritually. And eventually, those who are fighting you, just like the Philistines, you see what happened in Genesis Genesis 26, verse 28, right? It says they wanted to make peace with him. The Bible says that when a man's ways pleases the Lord, when a man's ways please the Lord, he makes even his enemy be at peace with him. So they want to reconcile with you. They surrender, right? Your enemies, the enemies of the children of God, because it's God who's fighting, right? It's a spiritual warfare. Right? I've talked about Ephesians 6, where it says, We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against what? Powers and principalities and powers, right? Spiritual wickedness and, you know, in heaven, in high places, right? Spiritual. So it's God who does that battle, that spiritual battle. And of course, nobody can defeat God, right? God is sovereign. And eventually, your enemies will surrender. They want to come and make peace. They'll surrender to you and they see God is with you, just like they did. Right. This is what happened in Genesis 26, verse 28. They said, We have certainly seen that the Lord is with you. So we said, Let there now be an oath between us, between you and us, and let us make a covenant with you, that you will do us no harm. These are the people who had an army, right? Isaac didn't have an army, just him and his wife and his servants. But in their own land, the Philistines, right, they had an army. The king came to him saying, But they said, We have certainly seen that the Lord is with you. So we said, Let there now be an oath between us, between you and us, and let us make a covenant with you, that you will do us no harm, since we have not touched you, and since we have done nothing to you but good, and have sent you away in peace. You are now the blessed of the Lord. They can see it, right? When God is dealing with them, when God is dealing with your enemies, if you know how to pray, if you know how to pray that that kind of prayer, and God is dealing with them and sending them the plagues, the sort of plagues that God was sending the Egyptians in their own land, because they were holding the children of Israel captive as slaves, and they wouldn't, let them go. Pharaoh was hardening his heart, and you know God was sending them plagues, right? So who knows what the Philistines were experiencing? The Philistines who were every time they were sabotaging the blessings that God gave Isaac. Every time he dug a well, they would push him out of a place. They would block it every time. They would sabotage him every time, but he would find water. And they saw that look, each time we sabotage this guy, he keeps getting blessed. And they realized, okay, there must be something going on, and they were scared. They now wanted to have a compact with them, a covenant, an oath that okay, he won't attack them. They were the ones attacking them. They were the ones attacking Isaac. They were the ones who had an army. He didn't have an army. All he had was God, and his grace is sufficient. Let me stop this video here, and I hope this encourages someone regarding getting to know the Bible, studying the Bible, learning about resilience, learning about people who rely on God through prayer and they're able to fight the good fight. My name is Olorotimi Osha. I will keep you posted. Thank you.